Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1970-73 Summer League Draft. We got first round draft results to post. The first round is done. It was wonderful fun. We have 33 picks, of course. We've got the 32 teams picking. One of the teams, Arizona, got the 33rd pick, the compensatory pick. That'll be an interesting player, you'll see. So without further ado, here we go. I'll start scrolling down. The team with the first overall pick in the draft, the Cleveland Indians, select Frank Robinson, 34 years old in 1970. 306, 398, 520, 918 line there. Would get a ring for the Baltimore Orioles if they held on to him, but they decide they want to trade him. We're willing to trade him because they're going to be bringing up Al Bunbury in this draft, who it's 337 to play a spot. Cleveland also announces at the same time that their 8th round selection is going to be Tony Horton, who played for Cleveland at age 25 in 1970. Had a nice year, 269, 453 slugging. Nice year for Tony. You can announce, if you have the rights to a player in the same year you're taking a player, you can simply say, I'm going to announce this pick now, and that means you can't take any more players from that particular year of 1970. Cleveland's fine with that. So it's their 8th round pick, but it's announced now. You'll see that happening several times. Speeds up the draft, so don't have to actually open and close boxes 256 times if it's not necessary. All right, the second pick in the draft, it's the Colorado Rockies, and they select, in Colorado Rocky form, Andy Cosco, his Cincinnati card of 1973, only 118 plate appearances, but 9 home runs, which translates to a 568 slugging and a 914 OPS. Typical boom or bust power player, pre-humidor Colorado Rocky player. If you've been following the series, Colorado builds their team around homers, walks, and strikeouts, and Andy Cosco is the poster child for that. So Colorado would be their only pick in the first round. Okay, you'll notice that it's on a different row, so keep in mind the row doesn't matter. The row corresponds to which of the 4 years, so you have to take a player in each of the 4 years in the draft. Cleveland took a 1970 player. Colorado took a 1973 player. With the 3rd overall pick in the draft, the Toronto Blue Jays select the new kid in town, Tommy A.G., showing off his shiny new World Series ring he just got from the New York Mets. 696 plate appearances for those Mets in 70, but now they will belong to the Blue Jays, as the Mets had to part ways. The embarrassment of riches of the Mets. They can't keep everybody. They had to let somebody go. So AG can be the rock that things are built on in Toronto, or however that is said. 286, 344, 469, 812 OPS for Tommy AG. And I believe they have another pick. They announced, Toronto, that in the 8th round, they're going to take their catcher, backup catcher, Frank Fernandez. He is an on-base machine slugger catcher who hits 214, 327 on base, though, and a 739 OPS. Not bad. Nice little player. All right. With the 4th pick in the draft, it is the Chicago Cubs. Only one player to announce, I believe. It's Fergie Jenkins. Magnificent 1971. Had their choice. 3 of these 4 years he's magnificent. They chose 71. A sparkling 2.77 ERA, 24 wins and 325 innings, a .04 WHIP. This seemed to be the best Fergie, so we took the best Fergie we could find. That is the one right there, and that is their only selection in the first round. Next up, the San Diego Padres will be taking the first rookie in the draft, and it will be a surprising pick here for the Padres. They take 1973 Dave Roberts as a second baseman. He can't really field at third or second. But as a second baseman, Dave Roberts had 21 homers, a 286 average, 310 on base, 472 slugging, and a 782 OPS. Those 21 homers were too much. 21 homers for a second baseman in 1973 is a big deal. So that's why the Padres were so attracted to Dave Roberts. They get 4 years out of this card. Doesn't do much after this in his career, but at least they get these 4 years. He's only 22 years old here. And that's their only pick. With the 5th pick in the draft. Okay, with the 6th pick in the draft, the Texas Rangers renewed Frank Howard, the big guy. Finally had to relinquish that magical 1969 card, so he goes a year later to his 1970 card, where he only hits 44 home runs instead of 48 home runs. Similar kind of deal for Frank. A 962 OPS. That'll get you picked in the first round every time. Everybody's favorite Washington Senator / Texas Ranger / Detroit Tigers / Milwaukee Brewer first base coach / real tall guy. Frank Howard, congratulations Texas Rangers for keeping the band together, because they also announced that in the 8th round they would be bringing back no, actually it's Ed Stroud, sorry. I thought that was going to be Epstein. Don't worry folks, we'll get Epstein later. They announced that they're going to take the 1970 Ed Stroud as a nice, capable, quick center fielder. Could steal some bases for you, cover some ground, left-handed bat. Nice little player. Doesn't have a long shelf life, but does okay at age 30. And he and Howard are coming from the 1970 box. All right, the next pick in the draft, as we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 7th pick belongs to Atlanta. No brainer here, folks. They take Rico Cardi with his 366 batting average, 454, 584, 1037 OPS. My goodness. Arguably the best card in the entire box has just been selected. Rico Cardi to the Braves. And I think that is their only pick in this round. All right, picking 8th, the Milwaukee Brewers. And they actually made 2 picks here. They cashed in 273 rookies that they have exclusive rights to. So they become, the first guy is Jim Colburn, who actually was a 20-game winner with a 3.18 ERA in 73. And then they select in the 5th round from the same box of 1973, Darrell Porter. What we liked about this card was the 820 OPS. He's, starting. He looks kind of like the guy we would later see with Kansas City. It's funny because he starts well, then he slumps a little, and then he comes on strong with Kansas City. But this first year, 254, 363, 820. It's a nice card. Nice two good players here for the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that certainly needs it. All right, with the 9th pick in the draft, the Ohio team took a 20-game winner, Al Downing. The LA Dodgers have too many left-handed pitchers. Doug Rowell they can't keep. Al Downing they can't keep because they're keeping Brewer and Osteen and Tommy John. So Al Downing was available. Ohio players snatched him up. 20-game winner for an expansion team. Great news for Ohio picking 9th. All right, picking 10th. The team who won the Commissioner's Award, we get to announce that here as well. So with the first round pick, they took Reggie Cleveland. His 1973 card was a Cardinal, taken in the expansion draft. A modest 14-game winner with a 3.01 ERA, but his whip's $1.21, and he pitches on 3 days rest, and they need an innings eater, so that serves that purpose. And later, with the 33rd pick, the compensation pick between rounds 1 and 2, they took from Milwaukee's extra player pool in 72, Brock Davis, a singles hitter who hit 318. That's a lot of singles. 365 on base, but only a 331 slugging because it was all singles. Arizona likes to build their team around batting average, and that'll certainly help the team batting average. He's a 318 hitter. He'll take his notes from George Stone. No, what's his name? George Thomas, who hit 343 for them in 1970. So they get to be teammates. All right. With the 11th pick, the Expos, love this one, folks. They take the young and the old. They took Steve Rogers, 23-year-old Steve Rogers, 17 starts, a sparkling .54 ERA, a 1.06 WHIP. And they also announced, because it's the same box, in the 5th round they're going to take Ron Fairley, just ageless wonder here, 288 at first base, 298 hitter in 1973. Ron Fairley. Actually hit 298 in 1970 as well, so you might as well get 4 extra years out of the 298 hitter. So, with the 12th pick, the St. Louis Cardinals take a Hall of Famer, Lou Brock. One of his best on-base percentage years, because he was starting to draw more walks. 313, but a lofty 385 on base. The stolen bases, what do we got, 64 of them? Sure, that's fine. 60, he'll always be a double-A during this period. So it's a question of drawing some walks and helping out his team. 200 hits as well for Mr. Brock that year. And I think they also added, Rick Wise was announced as their 7th round pick. 288 ERA, pitches on 3 days rest. Cardinals have a quality rotation. They have Bob Gibson, and they traded for Milt Pappas. And they have a lefty that's pretty good too. Oh, Danny Combs. Maybe not so much. Okay. So, the 13th pick. The Florida Marlins select Manny Mota. 34 years old. He's hitting .323 with an .809 OPS for the Florida Marlins. And what was so great about this .323 card is that when this card is up in 4 years, they will take the 77 Mota that hits .395. Okay. Next up, the White Sox. With the 13th pick, oh my goodness, folks. They only took the 1972 American League Most Valuable Player, Dick Allen. 308, 420 on base, 603 slugging, 1023 OPS. What, my goodness, folks. And check this out. They also announced from the same box, because they have his protection, in the 6th round, Carlos May. Magnificent Carlos May, 308, 405. All right, did you hear that, folks? Dick Allen, 420, and Carlos May, 405. The White Sox are coming, probably just improve their team more than any other with these first 2 picks than any of the other first 2 picks. Allen and May. But, of course, this all evens out throughout the draft. But what a coming out blazing are the Chi Sox. Watch out, folks. They're scary. All right, the Pirates, a team that disappointed a year ago, trying to right the ship. Do they go with a grizzled veteran? The answer is no. They go to a young 24-year-old Richie Zisk because he hit .324 with an .890 OPS. And he can actually, believe it or not, play center field at this age. Of course, later in his career, probably not. But the center field job has been vacated because Matty Alou was dealt in the offseason, and now Al Oliver doesn't have to play center the whole time, all the time. They took Zisk, and then they announced they would take Jim Rooker, recently acquired from Kansas City, with their 5th round selection. Rooker is also outstanding, 285 ERA, and 170 innings. All right, Seattle, this is a goofy couple of moves here. But Seattle is the first team to not add a player, but they improved, not one, but they got greedy and decided they were going to improve 2 players. That's why you see this light green shading. They already had Dave May and Fred Norman on the roster. They started this draft with 12 players, and they still got 12 players. They just made Dave May, bumped him up to a .303 hitter with an .824 OPS. Good range and arm in center field. His best year was with Milwaukee. And then Fred Norman, one of his better years. This was with the Reds in '73. He actually had a .500 record with a .360 ERA, 126 WHIP. Nothing special, but it helps a young Seattle team. We saw Las Vegas do this last year. You have kind of a bad team, so instead of adding more players to it, you improve the existing players you have first before you start adding more. So they've upgraded the 12 they started the draft with their picks from the 1973 box. Again, anytime you see like the two players picked in this round, it means that box is closed to that particular team. Okay, next up, the Phillies. And they took, in the 73 box, they added two players. They realized they're going to wait on Mike Schmidt a little longer till he's better. So they took a very nice Wayne Twitchell. Only 13 wins because his team wasn't very good, but a 2.50 ERA, a .121 whip, and a nice lefty reliever. He didn't have a long shelf life, but he had a nice 73. Mac Scarce. He had a 2.42 ERA. Mac only lasted a couple years, but that's a nice Strat-O-Matic card, and so they have it for 4 years to the Phillies. All right, next up, the Yankees. No-brainer here. They would take Fritz Peterson, 20-game winner in 1970 with a 2.90 ERA. He joins Mel Stottlemyre at the top of that rotation. That is outstanding work, if you can find it. Fritz Peterson with the first pick in the draft, and they also announced in the 8th round they would take Gene Michael. Now, Gene Michael in there because he's a 2. So last year, Gene's a 2 at short. He's a 3 the rest of the time. Rangy for a 32-year-old, even though he hits 214. So this pick was all about defense surrounding a excellent Yankee pitching staff. All right, Portland expansion team. They select Rich Coggins, a hot shot from Baltimore in 73. He and Al Bunbury came up together. Portland drew the small straw and took Rich Coggins. He will not have a long shelf life. Baltimore will be pretty happy with Al Bunbury as he will be with the Orioles from here to the early 1980s. Coggins, though, is a 319 card, 363 on base, 468, 831 with a little bit of speed. His defense isn't bad. They get him for 4 years. It would be his only good card. Next up, we have the Twins. And we have a Hall of Famer, Harmon Killebrew, at age 34, is still bringing it, folks. 34-year-old, 271, 411 on base, 546 slugging, 957 OPS for Kills the Brew. Harmon, the dude in Minnesota, first-round pick. Beat out a lot of competition on his own team at that age to do it. They also announced, I believe, yes, another older player, similar age, Ron Peranowski, same age, 34-year-old Ron Peranowski was added to their bullpen. His last really good year, a 2.43 ERA in 111 innings. All right, that's the first 20 teams. Team 21 with the 21st pick in the draft, a team that got knocked out in the wild card round last year, Las Vegas, selects Blue Moon Odom of 1972. Was an Oakland A, which means he got a ring for that team. 15-6, 2.50 ERA in 194 innings. Again, Oakland, a lot of these great teams can't protect everybody, and these expansion teams need all the help they can get, so they swipe them. Blue Moon Odom to Las Vegas. You'll start seeing notes here late in the round for some scouting I do, suggesting that I take Ken Brett next time they're on the clock. So disregard these notes as far as maybe they don't take Ken Brett when they're on the clock. But there will be notes in the latter part of the first round as the more competitive teams are getting restocked. With the 22nd pick, oh, we love our Kansas City Royals, do we not? They always do the smart thing, always been doing the smart thing, and they decided they were going to bump up Amos Otis. They've been using his 1970 card, which is an okay card, hits like 277. But they decided that they wanted to bump his card up now instead of waiting to his 1973 card, a 1-4 E6. He improves everything on his card. It goes from a 2 to a 1, a -2 arm to a -4 arm. Hitting 300, 368 on base, 484 slugging, 26 home runs, but the only stat he goes down in is stolen bases, and frankly, they don't need him to be stealing bases. They need him in the middle of the lineup. So Amos Otis and his 26 homers and 73. What a great pick that is for the Kansas City Royals. Again, this is a team that is going to compete for a World Series before George Brett arrives. This is my prediction. They're in a weak division, and look out for the Kansas City Royals. So next up is Houston, and they take the toy cannon. Why not? Jim Wynn, love the toy cannon. 282, 27 homers, 88 RBIs, 394 on base, 493 slugging, 886 OPS, 24 stolen bases. Doesn't have to play center field anymore because Cedeno is all over center field, so he's in the left field comfortably. Jim Wynn, Cesar Cedeno, Joe Morgan, keep the band together. Of course, we know Houston doesn't do that. Oh well, Houston, but I'll keep it together for at least 2 more years. And I think they also announced, do they not? No, that's it. Just the only pick. All right. Baltimore. 24th pick in the first round. The Orioles select Crazy Horse Mike Cuellar. 35 years old, matches his jersey number. 18-game winner in 72. Won 24 in 70. We said nah. Won 24 in 71. We said nope. It is 1972, a year the Orioles didn't even go to the playoffs. That's the Cuellar we like, with a 2.57 ERA and a .07 WHIP. Arguably his best year, all but forgotten in baseball history, Mike Cuellar, because of all the great years the Orioles had prior to 72. With the 25th pick, it is Oakland, and we get another most valuable player, folks. Your 1973 American League MVP, Reggie Jackson, age 27. 2-5 E9, ace stealer, 293 hitter, 32 bombs, 383 on base, 531 slug, and 914 OPS. He slices, he dices, he makes julienne fries. He is the most magnificent Reggie Jackson. This is the brick you build your dynasty on. And they have this card for 4 years, which gives Oakland the best chance that they get a World Series ring, or 2, or 3. But it gives them the best chance if you put Reggie into this card for 4 years. Because without Reggie, forget it. All right. The Dodgers. Feeling that they've been getting upstaged in the draft, that nobody's talking about the Dodgers. And everybody talked about the New York Mets pitching staff last year with Seaver and Kuzman and McGraw and Matlack. Well, the LA Dodgers have just shocked the world by doing a Seattle Mariners impersonation. They did not add any players. They improved Don Sutton and Jim Brewer to their 1972 cards. Yes, they already had Don Sutton and they already had Jim Brewer, so they just added nobody to their team, but they made Don Sutton arguably the greatest starting pitcher in baseball, and they made Jim Brewer the best left-handed reliever in baseball, to a cascade of boos from New York Mets fans as they're trying to upstage Tom Seaver and Tug McGraw. Good luck, Dodgers. They're trying to follow a blueprint of the New York Mets World Series championship a year ago. Can the Dodgers follow that same strategy? Notice in the notes department, they plan on adding Messersmith in 70, and Osteen in 70, and probably Tommy John in 73. So this team's pitching staff is insane. All right. The 27th pick, belonging to the California Angels. They added Bill Singer. He doesn't pitch on 3 days rest anymore. He only had 106 innings. But his performance is exceptional, a 104 whip. And I have to say it's probably the last exceptional performance of Bill Singer. He will pitch 300 innings again, but the whip starts to dip into the 120 range. So they get this card one more year as a true stopper, even in the short number of innings. And they also announced that in the 8th round, they will have Cesar Tovar, the spark plug at the top of the batting order. He doesn't have to play center. He can play left field now because they have Mickey Rivers in center field. So a couple nice picks for the Angels here. Next, The Big Red Machine. A couple picks ago, the 1973 American League MVP was Reggie Jackson. Well, the 1973 National League MVP was Pete Rose, and the Cincinnati Reds said, nah, we want the 70 Rose. And shocking, even myself, the Reds called and canceled the 73 MVP and said, make it Pete Rose. So I had to do what the Cincinnati fans said. 70 Rose, arguably better than 73 Rose. 316 in 70. It's 338 in 73. But he's got more doubles, more triples, a ton more homers, more walks, a better arm. You get the idea. And a better base stealer. Did I mention that? Yeah. So Pete Rose 1970 card, not the 1973 card, was added. Okay, final four teams, the teams from the LCS a year ago that lost, beginning with the Giants. And the Giants, no-brainer here, folks. This is an easy pick. They take Willie McCovey, the 1969 MVP. He comes back in 70 with 39 more homers, a 289 batting average, 444 on base, 612, 1056. Probably the best back-to-back years in Strat ever. Frank Howard and Willie McCovey both had monster 69 and 70s. My goodness, just magnificent. And they also announced that in the 8th round they would be taking Sam McDowell, acquired in the Gaylord Perry deal. Sam's a 20-game winner with a 2.92 ERA. Again, it's not quite as good as Gaylord Perry in 1973, but the Giants are hoping that they win the early part of this trade, not the later part of the trade. All right, 3 teams left. Boston. What does Boston do? They were the surprise team in the American League. They had the best record in the American League last year, but got bounced in the playoffs by the Tigers. And they did it with a magnificent pitching performance last year. They were well overachieving, super overachieving. So worried that they might not be able to achieve as well, they decided that they would improve Bill Lee, the spaceman, who was in the bullpen last year. Well, instead of being just a long guy in the bullpen, they bumped him up to 1973, 17-game winner, 2.75 ERA, and 284 innings. They have a legitimate innings eater at the top of the rotation, joining Sonny Siebert and Louis Tiant. So Boston should still have quality pitching in the Summer League to go along with the ridiculous hitting, trying to win in the ultra-competitive American League East. All right, we get to Detroit. The ageless wonders. Whatever's in the water in Detroit, you can play baseball into your mid-30s with no problem. No problem. 36-year-old Norm Cash at unbelievable 1971, 32 bombs. Believe he was in the All-Star game in his own stadium, right? 283, 372, 531 slugging, 903 OPS. And they also added, there he is, 28-year-old Willie Horton as well with the 7th round pick. And they're scheduled to improve Al Kaline and Jim Northrup later in this draft. All these guys are in their mid to late 30s and they keep on hitting. It's truly magical what goes on in Detroit. And lastly, tonight, the world champion New York Mets. We knew this pick would revolve around Mr. 41, Tom Seaver. And the only question was, you have 2 Cy Young caliber cards in question, 71 versus 73. And the answer was the 71 Seaver card was selected. 20-game winner with a .176 ERA. It's the only time his ERA is below 2 during this time. The whips are very close. The 73 card is a strong runner-up to the 71 card. I have to go with 71 by a whisker. When I looked at both cards side by side, it was hard to choose one or the other. It's funny, one card, this card, the 71 card, gives up homers to righties. The 73 gives up homers to lefties. The difference is he's an E5 in 71, and he's like an E26 in 73. It was hard to do, but they took Tom Seaver in 71. And they also announce that their other pick from this box for their 7th round pick will be Cleon Jones. Best year since the 69 340 for Cleon. 2E6 in left field, a 319, 382, 473, 856 OPS. It's funny, but when their contracts are up, Seaver and Cleon Jones, they could come right back to their 73 cards. Seaver and Cleon's last good year, I believe, is 1973. That is a wrap for the first round of the 1970-73 Carryover League Draft. Hope you're enjoying this. We'll have results for the next rounds on a daily or bi-daily basis. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.